Everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. The City of Palo Alto in California is planning on deploying municipal broadband after thinking about that for a really long time, and that is despite both Comcast and AT&T offering Gigabit service throughout much of the city. Be right back with the details. Thanks for joining me, Rick Husey with Quorum with Broadband Deployment News. So it says here, after decades of talk, Palo Alto drives forward on municipal fiber broadband. This is on community networks. For over 20 years, the city of Palo Alto, the birthplace of Silicon Valley, has flirted with the idea of building a city-owned municipal fiber network. Now, after years of debate, numerous studies, several false starts, and many unfulfilled RFPs, the city officials say they're finally moving forward. With a city-owned fiber network, they hope will transform affordable broadband connectivity citywide. Palo Alto officials tell ILSR, that's this website, that the project will be spearheaded by the city utility and deployed in coordination with a major upgrade to the city's electrical systems. Phase one of the city's planned fiber deployment should begin later this year, delivering fiber access to around 20% of the city, or 6,500 homes and businesses. So 20%. And I'll show here in a minute as we look at this where service is in the city. So they're going to have a challenge because this is not like deploying broadband where you've got this pent-up demand. Lots of folks that have poor broadband internet. A lot of these folks have really good internet. The question is, are they happy with the price, I think, primarily, or are they happy with the customer service? In most cases, I think folks are happy with the speed, assuming that it's not their Wi-Fi network that would be causing the problem. I mentioned here a long time coming. Palo Alto residents have been clamoring for better, more affordable alternatives to regional telecom monopolies for 25 straight years speaks for itself. Now, of course, the lay of the land has changed a lot in the last 25 years. We're talking, I think they were saying it's the first things they were doing in 1998. Obviously things have changed since then. Some of these telecom companies have been able to up their game, and again, probably a lot of people in the community are happy, as we'll see. I will actually look at some surveys and see a lot of people are happy. And a lot of people have access to, as I mentioned, gig internet through Comcast and AT&T in a lot of areas. These are some pictures from a survey that I'll show where they're showing, what the percentage of service that people have from the different providers and where they're going to go first. Palo Alto is conducting a major upgrade of the city's electrical grid, and a lot of times you'll see that with cities or especially rural electric co-ops, where they can leverage that infrastructure, that fiber that they've already got running to various substations, those kinds of things, where that can be used to then take that fiber, extend it out past homes and businesses, and you can get a lot of that infrastructure that's already there and make use of it. A key component, they say, of those upgrades is a $26 million expansion of the city's existing fiber backbone. Last December, city officials voted to approve plans to spend another $20 million to extend access to that network to local residents and businesses. One phase of the deployment is expected to provide affordable access to around 7,100 or 71,060 homes and 875 businesses, paid for by the city utility's existing fiber and electric reserves. So they've got some money in reserve to do that. Now, I don't know if they're taking into account the actual connections. Sometimes those drops can be pretty expensive. So I don't know if they're talking about just passing these locations, but then you've got to do the drops. So that's something else they need to consider. While electrical upgrades were a motivating factor, officials say Palo Alto's newfound urgency was also driven by the widespread frustration with broadband access many locals experienced during the COVID home education and telecommunicating boom. And that was, of course, a factor all throughout the country. But in most cases, where you think about that being a factor, it would be somewhere where somebody just has DSL service and suddenly it's like, their 10 by 1 at very best is not sufficient for them when they get home. And, you've got kids at home, you've got parents at home, and they're all trying to do Zoom work and Zoom school. Became a problem. But here in a lot of these homes, as we'll see, they didn't have that. I mean, they had access to good internet. I don't know what has been upgraded since then. It's very possible that Comcast came out and upgraded them. Comcast has been doing continual upgrades throughout the country as they've gone to DOCSIS 3.1 and now implementing DOCSIS 4.0 in places. And AT&T's been upgrading their plant from old copper DSL to fiber network. So maybe some of that has happened since COVID. But again, what they're talking about doing now is deploying broadband based on the way things are now. So you need to take into account the fact that things may have even improved since COVID. I don't know. People were having problems at home with their capacity or getting dropped off calls. So I think at that time, the council realized that it should be considered a public utility as well. Palo Alto generally sees more broadband competition than many municipalities that eye a municipal network, according to city surveys, which I'm going to take a look at here in a minute. Comcast provides service to around 70% of the city, while AT&T provides either fiber or aging DSL to around 30%. And they're actually talking, I'm not sure where they get the 30%, but when you look at the survey, they're actually, I think, talking about market share. So it's not necessarily, it could be that Comcast provides access to almost 100%, but not only 70% of the people get the service from Comcast. I'm not sure of those numbers. Independent ISP Sonic provides gigabit fiber access to roughly 4% of the city. Again, I believe that is market share. But the same survey indicates that 36% of city residents are frustrated by substandard customer service. So that's got nothing to do with COVID, other than if you're having a problem and you call and you can't get help from their ISP. And more than 46% of locals are somewhat dissatisfied with the cost of broadband service. Again, that's not really related to COVID or whether somebody has good access. These are two common complaints from people, especially with the big faceless internet service providers like a Comcast or like AT&T, that it's difficult to get service and the costs are high because quite often they're a monopoly. Now here in Palo Alto, they're not a monopoly in a lot of places when you look around, which again I will look at here in a minute, that you've got both AT&T and Comcast, so they're competing against each other. So they're going to be, trying to provide better service in that situation and maybe lower prices than they might in an area where they're the monopoly provider. So these are things that are not related to speed, and you've got two existing providers there. So this is going to be challenging, I think, for the city of Palo Alto to make this work financially. A quest for lower prices was cited as the number one reason residents would be likely to switch to the Palo Alto fiber network. So that's all I was going to read from this. Then I wanted to look at their survey. So there's a lot of information prior to this, but then they get to the survey here. And this, again, is where they are. What is this? This is distribution of responses. So this is just showing where they got the responses from the survey. Then we've got internet service providers. So again, this is market share here. So they've got households that subscribe to the internet providers illustrated in Figure 1. So this is who people subscribe to. It's not necessarily the coverage area that Comcast has. It's just that they have about 70% of the broadband subscribers that answer the survey, right? These are survey answers. Then you've got AT&T, 23.2%. It mentioned that AT&T has old copper plant here, but as you look through the map, I think you're going to find that AT&T is probably upgrading people to fiber as I speak, I would think, because I'm looking and most places have fiber. I did find a couple of places on the map where it looks like maybe there's fiber DSL, but then there's fiber very close where they could be extending that out. So they could be going through that process right now. Then you've got Sonic, again, 3.7%, but that's people who answered the survey. And then you've got Etheric, I'm not sure what that is. Then an unsure, 0.3%, and other write-ins, 2.9, almost 3% on that. Residential internet prices, it says about 50% of Palo Alto households pay between $60 and $100 for internet service per month. Again, these are people that answered the survey. AT&T's service competes with Comcast Xfinity's cable-based broadband service at 1 gigabit and lower speeds. However, AT&T's service is not available in all areas. Then we look at how people answered the pricing question, and you can see, and this is, people are going to answer also based on the plan they have. So if they don't have a gigabit plan, it could be less expensive. So you see almost 30%, $41 to $60, just under that, $61 to $80. Then we've got about 20%, $81 to $100. Those could be folks on a gigabit plan. And then we've got 101 to 120, 8.4%. So on these last two, I don't know for sure whether people who are answering this survey are including their entire bill, which would be a bundle maybe of internet and, let's say, broadband service. Did I say internet broadband? Sorry. Of internet broadband service and video, for example, or pay TV. So I would not be surprised if some of these include people that have a bundle, because I would think, especially with Comcast and AT&T sharing, competitively this area, that a gig internet you could get for $80 or so, maybe at most 100. So this 101, 120 would be very surprising to me. Then satisfaction, you can see here satisfaction-wise, very dissatisfied, 6.7%, somewhat dissatisfied, 21.7%. So you got a pretty good number of people that are neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, all the way up to very satisfied, 14.4, 40, almost 40% somewhat satisfied. And who's really very satisfied with their broadband service, especially if it's coming from a large provider? Very satisfied, 17.8%. I guess that's the answer to that question. So a number of people, 17, almost 18%, said they're very satisfied. And why am I saying that the big broadband providers have a problem? Is because they don't focus on a community like a municipality might, or like an electric membership co-op where the customers are members and they're part of the community as well. So that is a valid ding sometimes against these large companies. They're also large. So that's, when you call, you're getting somebody in a call center, maybe somewhere else in the country, or maybe even out of the country. And they are sometimes incentivized to get people off of the phone, as opposed to solving their problem, because again, these big companies, they're public companies, so they're trying to wring out every bit of profit they can. So when you call the call center, if they can't resolve your issue right away, they tend to try to start to get you off the phone on some of these. So that could be a reason. People are not happy with the customer service. Then we see satisfaction levels for individual aspects of internet services. So here we got speed, and you can see very dissatisfied, about 8.1%, about 20% somewhat dissatisfied, neither, 15.5, somewhat satisfied, 33.7, and very satisfied, 22.9, or almost 23%. So you see a good percentage here of very satisfied, or neither satisfied, or are satisfied of some percentage, some level. And then you've got 15.5% that don't even think about it. And they're like, I guess I am. They're not sure, neither one way or the other. Price, again, you've got, this was a common theme, but it's still, you've got, 14. Yeah, these are a little higher. So you got 14.5% very dissatisfied, 31.9% somewhat dissatisfied. And of course, people are, they're having to pay money. They're going to tend to be more dissatisfied whenever any money is coming out of their pocket, and especially when they think, wow, broadband's kind of taking up a lot of my budget here. Neither satisfied or dissatisfied, 23%. Somewhat satisfied with the price, 22.4%, and very satisfied, 8.1%. So I'm not surprised that only 8% said, yeah, we're very satisfied with paying $80 or however much it is a month for broadband. Reliability, they don't do too bad on reliability. If you look at the somewhat satisfied and very satisfied, you've got over 50% are in the satisfied kind of category, and 13, almost 14%, either way, they don't really think about it. And then you've got somewhat down here, you see there's fewer people that are somewhat dissatisfied and very dissatisfied compared to the other end here. Then you've got in-home tech support. So this says in-home technical support. So I would think that would be somebody coming out to your home. And the only time you would want that, hopefully, would be if somebody's coming out to do an install. You don't want to have them have to roll a truck to fix your problem, but sometimes that's the case. But we've got here, you can see on let's look at very dissatisfied, 10.2%, somewhat dissatisfied, 16.9, almost 17%. And again, not surprised here, big number, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, because people are probably like, what do you mean in-home tech support? Are they talking about people, is that tech support in general that you can call from your home and get somebody on the phone? Or is that talking about actually somebody coming to your home and doing that? Then you've got somewhat dissatisfied and very dissatisfied. That's satisfied, somewhat and very, not too high there. So you got 17.1 and 9.7. So a big number in the middle there that I think they probably didn't know how to answer that question or weren't really sure. And then it does mention bundling here. As I said, this I think could have could be some of that pricing that we're looking at, unless they delineated in the question only for your internet service, or they took out the people that have bundles, but I don't think they did. So mentions here the response indicate a low rate of bundling, with only 30% of residents bundling cable TV and 24% bundling home phone. At these low rates, the additional cost of providing these services may not be worth the additional customer subscription. So really what they're looking at here is not that many people are bundling. It's still a good number. So if they're basing the pricing calculations that they were talking about earlier on bundling, then it could be that some of those higher prices they're seeing are specifically bundled products. When you're talking about over $80 or over $100, it could be something that's got video in addition to their broadband. But what they're saying here is that it's a low rate, 30% and 24% for video and for phone. So they're saying, well, maybe it's not worth us to do that. It's not worth us we can do the internet, but it might not be worth it to do the video or the phone service. And I can understand that, thinking that, video is kind of a dying thing, some people think, although IPTV is a good solution. I think a lot of people like linear TV. They like the fact that you can pull up a guide and look for something. And they're starting to see the cost of streaming. When you get just a couple of streaming services together, that cost really rises quickly. So I think some people do like the linear as an option as well. But what this means is if they don't offer this and they've got 30%, 24% of subscribers out there that have these other services and they're not going to offer that, that's going to take down their take rate, because those are people that are not going to switch because they're getting that service from the other provider, whether it's Comcast or AT&T. And you see here other services. That's just a chart of that. And then this is showing cord cutting preferences. So they're also saying a lot of people are cutting the cord, which is true. Reasons to switch. The survey asked respondents to rank the top 3 reasons they would switch. Price ranked highest, which again, most people want to say the price is too high when somebody asks them, because it's like, well, maybe if I say it's too high, they'll lower the price. Or the city will come out with a lower price. What else? As they say, which is customary for responses to this question. Faster speeds ranked second, and reliability ranked third. So you can see here, lower price, the first overall rank, then faster speed, then higher reliability. Faster upload speeds, not many people mention that. They may, again, when you're doing surveys, people may not even realize what you're talking about. My upload speed, I don't know. What does that mean? They know about download maybe. But it also, you can see that when we look at the data here in a minute, that a lot of people have AT&T service, or they've got Comcast service where they've got pretty good upload speeds, I think. Better customer service ranked. Not too many people complain about that as far as ranking these. And then online privacy. So these 4 were far and away, or these 3, I should say, on the upper side were far and away the highest. Market share calculations. And I think this is kind of striking down here, because I kind of recognize the issue. But I don't think they're completely taking into account. The city will be a new market entrant that must build its network, operations, and sales force from scratch. That's true. That's a big job. The city should also anticipate that competitors will react by lowering rates and negotiating long-term contracts with their customers. And that's true as well. So if the city says, hey, we're going to do this, and they go do this, AT&T and Comcast, they're going to say, well, not only are we competing with ourselves, but we're competing with a public-owned entity that doesn't need to make a profit. So they're going to do whatever they can to try to get customers. They're going to offer them low rates and say, sign up for 2 years, for 3 years at this low rate, and maybe something where they think maybe the city would be at or even lower to hold on to those customers. But they're also going to just lower their prices in general, and they're going to try to probably up their game on support of the customers, customer service. Speed-wise, they should be just as good as what the city can offer. The city could come out and say, hey, we're going to do 10 gig, but the people need it, and would it make a difference? No. So it gets down to marketing at that point. It says these 3 forces. So the city should also anticipate that competitors. Yeah, I mentioned that. These 3 forces together may yield lower take rates for Palo Alto Fiber than if it was an existing operator in the marketplace. Existing and alone, because again, a lot of times that's what happens is, a city, they want to provide internet to areas that are not getting good internet, and a pent up demand. A lot of people want to sign up, and then you kind of quickly can build up your subscriber base. But if you're coming into an area that's already got 2 providers that are people are fairly happy with, or, then it's hard to get that take rate. So it says here, preliminary market share from the conjoint analysis indicates a 62.2% overall take rate for the city. Using the risk discounting method, the study discounted the 62.2% by 22% to arrive at a final take rate of 40.26%. So taking kind of the fact that they're a new entrant and they've got competitors, and I would say strong competitors in the area, they're knocking that down to 40.26%. And, I'd be surprised if they even got there. I suppose they could. If they come out with a low price, good service, and there's that community, hey, rah, rah, our city's internet provider, let's do that. They could get up to that. But one thing I will tell you is that people don't like change. And changing your broadband provider, while it sounds easy, it's not. You've generally got wires that need to be swapped out, and you've got maybe a new router, and then you've got Wi-Fi connecting everything. And it's like, well, what's my SSID and what's my password? And now I got to get it. People don't want to do it. So they will do it if there's a reason. So if the city comes out with a significantly lower price, people may take that jump. More people will take that jump. If people are really unhappy with the service they're getting from the other providers, Comcast or AT&T, then they will make a change. And, granted, if somebody's with Comcast and they're unhappy, and then AT&T and the city are options, they may more likely go with the city, again, being a local provider, and vice versa. If they've got AT&T and they're not happy, they may more likely go with Palo Alto Fiber versus switching over to Comcast, because, again, that's the local city, and maybe they'll get a better experience and deal, or, again, just dealing with people locally. So you see here what they're kind of calculating the take rate would be by plans. So they're looking at maybe out of this 40% or so take rate market share, 22%, actually 13%, if you're looking at the discounted risk rate, so to speak, 13% on gig, and 26% at 500 meg, and 1% on 100 meg. And they've got their pricing here. So for a gig, they're looking at $90 a month. So it's not like this is going to be much less than AT&T or Comcast. And certainly Comcast and AT&T can meet that price. So I think it's going to be difficult. I don't know, frankly, I don't think this is a good idea because the city can get into the fiber business, but if there's not a compelling reason for them to do that, or for people to switch to it, then it can be a drain on the city and the city's finances. There is a bunch of financial stuff after this, but they've got to get. It's not just if they've got reserves and they can build a lot from the reserves, that's great. But then they're using that reserves for something that may not be successful. And then there's an ongoing maintenance kind of thing that they've got to do. Again, they've got to do customer installs. They've got to figure out how they're going to do technical support and a call center. They could use somebody like us. And I'll put that out there. If somebody from Palo Alto's watching this, or any other city, or whoever that's getting the business, we can provide 24/7 broadband support for your subscribers. We've been doing that forever. Even before broadband, dial-up since 1995, we've been doing that for other internet service providers. So we can do that, and we can. That's one thing that they wouldn't have to do. There's other things we can do that can help a new internet provider save money. We've got diagnostics to help improve efficiency of the staff. We've got other kinds of services. So check us out. I'll have our contact info up here in a minute. But there's all of these things that they're going to have to do that are going to be costs. So it's going to be difficult for them to make this work. So we'll see how it goes. I did want to look at some maps here. So first is just Palo Alto. Let me make that a little bigger. So here you've got what Palo Alto looks like on Google Maps. So it's interesting. So there's this area. So this is San Francisco Bay here. And then there's this area down here that kind of tails off that looks like a lot of state park and stuff. So I don't think there's a lot of need for internet here. But this certainly could be an area where you're not going to have AT&T and Comcast coming out and providing service. But you wouldn't want to say, well, we're going to provide internet to all of this area that is very well covered to be able to get to a small number of homes here. You would rather somebody like AT&T or Comcast or the city even to go out and get BEAD funding to be able to build out to this area and not have to overbuild in this area, because they can't get BEAD funding here. Nobody can get BEAD funding here. This is already too well covered. You really don't have any areas in here that need internet as far as I can see. There might be a few DSL ones only, but I think even Comcast is covering those. So you got this area, then you got this big area. And as I zoom in, obviously as I zoom in here, this, like I say, there's nothing here other than, you might find, I think you got some park, and there's, you'll find something like this. This looks like I guess this is a home. So you might have some homes like this that don't have internet. And, how do you reach that? Well, the answer is not to overbuild the entire city of Palo Alto to get to this one home. Like I say, there's better things you could do here, including fixed wireless to reach this home, or again, somebody getting funding, an existing provider getting funding to extend out into the areas that are not covered elsewhere. And then as you look at this area of Palo Alto, it is very, very urban, I should say, or suburban. So you've got all kinds of homes and businesses. There's no reason that you would anticipate that people would not have internet here. And I pulled up this on the National Broadband map. So you can do this. If you say Palo Alto, start typing Palo Alto, California, that'll pull up, and then you can click that. And it will tell you, it doesn't zoom in, this is the United States here, but it'll tell you no location data. But you can click right here on Palo Alto, California, and it'll take you right to where it kind of thinks the center is, I guess. It's not really the center. So where it's actually showing you when you zoom in is, let me get back to this out here. Somewhere, I think, in this general area, it puts the pin on the map. Here you see Palo Alto. It's probably somewhere around here where the Google map also says Palo Alto. And it says, okay, here's Palo Alto. So it's somewhere in this general vicinity that it's placing the pin, but you've got all these other areas here, obviously, that looks like it's the city limits, including this odd extension down here with this mountainous whatever area. So as you do that, you can zoom in, and I went ahead and switched over to, well, I had this pulled up already earlier, and I changed it to all wired. So I took fixed wireless off. I changed it to all wired, and I changed it to a speed of 120 meg or greater. So even higher than underserved. So not just 25 by 3, but this is 100 by 20 or greater. So these are places that have that kind of service. And you can see everything's green pretty much. You got some red dots, which don't make any sense. I think those are just errors on the map, on the broadband data. So I switched it to satellite to, again, give kind of an idea of what that looks like. So I just happened to click on that. But this particular place, this is a library. So that, I guess, maybe is an anchor institution, or looked at as an anchor institution that is not included on the broadband data collection that was done. That may be why that's red. And I saw a few other places that are red. What is this? This is a health tap. That sounds like a business, so that's not a home. But as you zoom around in here, as I go out, you can see everything's blue, and 100% coverage, 99%, 100%. Got this area here, 7.5% coverage. I zoomed into this, and basically this is part of Stanford University that's showing up as being in Palo Alto. So this is the college, and not that this has access to internet. I don't know why there are a few red dots here and there. You would think these would all have red dots on them, that this is something that was reported into the broadband data collection database. You've got a few other places here. Again, I don't know why. This is a hospital, so you got businesses. This is showing as unserved, but obviously this could be, or definitely has some kind of high-speed internet. It's just showing up as unserved on here. And this, again, looking at the Palo Alto map, if you look at Stanford, that's basically all of this area. So what I was just looking at a minute ago is in their little red area here. That's Stanford. This is part of Stanford. But the rest of this, Stanford University, where is it? All of this, Stanford University, just isn't really included in the Palo Alto area. And it's got, I'm sure, its own internet coming in, private internet from, could be Comcast, could be AT&T, who knows who's providing that. But it's not in the broadband data collection database. So again, looking at these areas, going more to the area of the city that we'd be talking about, not Stanford. As I come in here, you can see everything's blue, and as I scroll around and scroll in, I've got everything being, did I say blue? That's blue, and now it's green as I zoom in. It's all green. So if I click here on any of these homes, I look and I see I've got AT&T, fiber to the prem, gig symmetrical. I've got Comcast, over a gig down, now only 35 up, but I guarantee you the people that have that, assuming Comcast's service is stable, are fine with that. Even with the 35 up, they're probably not noticing that. It's really more the down speed that most people need. I'll click over here. These are all going to be, now this is interesting. So I clicked over to this home. Am I there now? And I've got AT&T copper. So this is DSL. And then I still got Comcast at over a gig down. So that one is DSL. Let me click next door. DSL, next door, DSL. So they don't have fiber at these locations. But what I noticed was, as I clicked around earlier on this has got 50. So this is a little closer to the central office right here, that DSL. But as I mentioned, as I clicked around on this map, I noticed some areas that were DSL, but I also noticed that I'd find an area, I haven't found it yet, but I'd find an area as I clicked around that it's like, oh, there's fiber. And it looks like this area is pretty well served by DSL and not fiber. But I guarantee you, with AT&T having fiber in so many areas, that they are moving as quickly as possible, I guess, as they can here to get fiber out to these areas. Plus, all of these areas that have DSL from AT&T, you'll see they all have Comcast at least over a gig service. So we did find an area. Now, right here is an area where I've got AT&T copper and 5 gig service fiber from AT&T. What about this house? Same thing. What about over here? And now I'm going to cross the street. All right, so now I just lost my fiber. So the fiber's running down here. They haven't yet gotten to this part of town. But again, I think they will, especially when they hear, when they read this report, may have already, that City of Palo Alto is coming in with fiber. They're going to be like, okay, well, let's go ahead and bump this one up to the top of the priority list to get fiber out there. Right now, it might not be on the priority list because you've already got Comcast there. And it's like, well, we've got other areas we can focus on that don't have a major competitor. Well, now they've got a major competitor here, so they might not have prioritized these, but looking at it and saying, well, Palo Alto is going to get in the business. We need to go ahead and get fiber out to these other homes and see what we can do. And then that would be, if they can do that before the city gets their fiber up, then as I mentioned, if somebody's not happy with Comcast and suddenly AT&T comes in and the residents at some of these homes where they've got, right now they've just got Comcast and suddenly AT&T rolls in fiber at this point, then those people might say, hey, let me try out AT&T. So they actually have an opportunity to gain some market share as they go into this area. Once the city comes in, that opportunity is diminished again because you've got the third competitor, plus you've got a competitor that's local to the community. So for all these reasons, I don't get it. As I go around this map, I didn't find this huge percentage of homes, or even hardly any homes that I could find that don't have internet of at least a gig downstream. And when I say I found a couple of places down in that, down in this kind of mountainous area down in here. And even when I clicked on those, they were not actually Palo Alto addresses. Even though they're showing in here, they were showing that they were another city name. So again, I'm not finding, if I come in here to somewhere like this place, what is this? I don't think it'll tell me. Santa Clara County. A couple of them, it'll tell you the address. In this case, it's not. So anyway, not fully understanding it, but the City of Palo Alto is moving forward since 1998, been thinking about doing this. COVID happened, and then that kind of pushed them over the edge. But again, I don't know how much has changed even since COVID, because internet service providers like Comcast have been upgrading their cable plant since that time. AT&T's been rolling out fiber since that time. So even since COVID, things might have changed in Palo Alto. So I wish them luck. It's just going to be a tough hill to climb because they've got 2 entrenched competitors there. And as I say, people don't like change. So it's hard to get people come in there as a third provider. You can lower the price, but the price they're talking about right now is nothing special. And AT&T and Comcast could easily match that if they're not already at that price. And they certainly could do, like I say, long-term specials for people to keep people on their service. People will not switch unless they have a reason to do so. So it's going to be difficult for them. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. If you are not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button. Click the bell to be notified when I'm live. If you like the video, give me a like on that. I'd appreciate it. And as I mentioned, if you are an internet service provider or thinking about becoming an internet service provider and you're looking at how much all of this is going to cost, well, we can help you from start to finish, really. I mean, if you need help with everything from engineering and design to construction, contact us. We can work with you there. But really, where we shine, where we started out was after the network is built, you still need help. You still got to figure out how you're going to do technical support. You have to train and you have to open a new call center or train people on doing internet when they're used to supporting, electric. And mostly that's just taking a phone call. Your electric's out? Okay, let me send a truck over there and let's see what's going on, or water, that kind of thing. Internet's a different animal. So we can help with that, again, 24/7 or, only when you need us, really. We can do after hours, holiday support, weekend support, that kind of thing. Diagnostics, CALIA compliance, carrier grade NAT for IPv4, cybersecurity, a big one right now. If you're going to be getting in the internet business, especially if you're going to be getting BEAD funding or any federal funding in the future, you're going to be required to be support the NIST cybersecurity framework, and we can help you with how to do that. Plus, we can provide the services, the cybersecurity services that will make you NIST compliant. So that's all required if you're going to be getting funding. And it's even required these days if you want to get insurance. A lot of the insurance companies are saying, you know what, you need to have a cybersecurity plan in place and the policies plus the software, the equipment and everything to make sure that that you can mitigate a ransomware attack, that you can prevent them and mitigate them, reduce the likelihood that you're going to be out of business for a long period of time. So insurance companies are requiring that as well. Again, thanks for joining me. I will be back tomorrow with Broadband Deployment News. Take care. Bye-bye.